Good evening. Thank you all for attending tonight's event. My name is Willie Molina, and I'm the Director of the Student Services Office. Happy to welcome the entire group today to our Career Advantage Program third annual event of the year. Now, before I get too far along in my introduction, we have a very special guest that I'd like to call up to the stage. Jim Ellis, Dean of the Marshall School of Business, is joining us tonight, having a giggle over here. So come on down, Jim.
Thanks, Willie. I just wanted to take a second to thank all of you mentors for what you do for us and for our students. This program has been stopped and started for a period of time, and now we've got a pretty good momentum going, and I just can't tell you how important this is. And I know it takes time from your daily grind, but if you're like me, anytime you're around these students, you get invigorated completely. Some of them. There's a couple of you guys that don't invigorate anybody, but I won't name names. A couple of alums in here too, the same way. Anyway, I just really want to tell you how much we appreciate it. And as far as you students are concerned, take advantage of the brain power that you have with your mentor, and really get them to help you through any issues you have, any conversations you want to have. Don't be shy. You know, we've all had problems in our lives, and we've all had crossroads that we hit, and we need somebody to talk to. And these guys are there for you to talk to and to share your concerns and your questions. And I'm coming to a fork in the road. Which way do I go? And, you know, what happens in life is that fork doesn't always come at a convenient time. You're going to get to a situation in your interviewing process where you're going to be offered a job by one company. This is going to happen, so just remember that I said this, okay? You're going to be offered a job by one company, and they're going to want an answer by Friday. And you got a follow-up interview with another company next Tuesday. What do I do? It's going to happen every time. So the decisions never come at the same time. These are the kind of guys to ask those questions to. What kind of advice would you give me? And so they're really here to give you advice, and it's great, and we really appreciate all of you guys and the time you take. So thanks for being here tonight. It's just great to see everybody. I appreciate all of you being here. Thanks, Willie, and thank you, Phil, very much. Thanks, Willie.
Thank you, Dean Ellis. Tonight we want to have this opportunity to welcome 6 new mentors that have started in the spring, as well as 35 new students that have joined the program in the spring. So I want to take this opportunity to formally welcome all of you. I hope you'll enjoy yourselves and want to come back next fall. So students, please be good, so they'll come back. We are very pleased to have an incredible speaker this evening, and I hope that his presentation will inspire a lot of thought and discussion among your smaller teams and CAP mentor-mentee teams. Phil Francis is Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of PetSmart, North America's leading pet retailer. Prior to joining PetSmart in 1998, he was President and Chief Operating Officer of Shaw's Supermarkets Incorporated, headquartered in Massachusetts. A graduate of the University of Illinois and the Indiana University of Business. That's okay, we still would love to have you here on campus. He has been heavily involved in the Chicago, Columbus, and Boston United Way organizations. In Phoenix, he currently serves as chairman of the Valley of the Sun United Way. He is the incoming chairman of the Greater Phoenix Leadership and is chairman of the ASU W.P. Carey School of Business Dean's Council of 100. He serves as the board of directors of SuperValue Incorporated and Cardinal Health. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of my dog's favorite pet store, Phil Francis.
Well, hello everyone, and good to be with you. And I'm supposed to establish my credentials or something here first. I think, and have described to lots of people, Ed Sample as the best university president in America over age 55. I know one younger than that who I like well also, but I think he's in a class alone. I'm a big fan of Jim Ellis. I'm a big fan of Mike McKeever, who was my son Rob's mentor when he was in the class as a senior about a year ago in this room, and he came to check me out tonight. He revealed my secret. He said, my dad only actually has about 10 things he ever says. He just depends upon a fresh audience for his material. So since most of you haven't heard it, I'm going to ask Rob not to reveal, and we'll see where we go. With the three different groups this afternoon, and I tend to do better when I tell stories than when I use a PowerPoint or read something. So I've got some discussion starters, and I'm going to describe what happened to me before I got here and try to do it pretty quickly, and then leave some room for your questions, because I'm sure you'll know much better than I do what you wish I had said. I was born in 1946, and that's important because I'm the oldest possible baby boomer. I tell people that Yoda was my younger brother, but I still qualify as a baby boomer, although I'm an age scout for those of you who are younger baby boomers. I went to Illinois, then Indiana. I was an undergraduate business major, and I was neither LAS nor business as an undergraduate. So when I got to graduate school, it was all news to me, and I would mention here a mentor. Some of you will hopefully have a mentor like mine. His name was Dean Harvey Bunke. He taught a class back then called Business, Ethics, and Public Policy. It was essentially a Western civilization course with 10 paperback books and a paper. And he spent his semester trying to describe market capitalism and the ethical choices we would face, and tried to make us think, make us uncomfortable, never gave us black or white answers. And I thought so much of him that actually I have funded a lecture series in his honor called the Harvey Bunke Lecture Series in Business, Ethics, and Public Policy. And as long as he's willing and able, he gets to pick the speaker and introduce the speaker. And the feedback I had on that from the guy who succeeded him in teaching the similar course was that many college staff members spend their whole life wondering if anybody was listening. And that my funding that lecture series meant that Harvey at least knew that one person was listening, and that made him envied. So if you have a good professor, when you leave, why tell them that they were a good professor and that you appreciate them. I went from graduate school to Jewel Companies as a corporate trainee. The chairman there I never knew is credited with the servant leadership, upside down organization chart, whatever you might call it. You can still read about that today, and it's kind of making a comeback. I was raised that way. Let me tell you about a few people. A guy who is named Harry Beckner, who's still alive, gave me the best put down I ever had in my life. I was a hotshot corporate MBA trainee. I thought I was pretty good. He was about 6'6", sat at a desk, had glasses that sat in his nose, and I had a 45-minute interview with him. He asked me some question, I said something, and he thought a moment and said, well, Phil, no idea is too small to consider. And I don't think I realized till about 5 minutes later that he had smashed me. But around PetSmart today, if somebody says something really dumb, you're apt to have somebody say, well, Joe, that no idea is too small to consider. It's become a part of our lexicon. Had another guy named Jim Henson, who now lives in Florida, who is as good a leader as I ever saw inside Jewel food stores. He was good because people liked him so much they wouldn't let him fail. And the sign on his desk was, there's no limit to how far a man or woman can go as long as they don't care who gets the credit. And for him, it was about teamwork and the results, and he lived that way, and that example was plenty good enough. The worst boss I ever had is still alive. His initials are BK, and let me tell you the experience. It was a small grocery company. I was a new buyer. My colleagues were 4 men 25 years older than I was. I was an arrogant, snotty, lippy, 25-year-old, thought my own didn't stink, hotshot. And my colleagues froze me out. I had 6 bad months. They'd sneak out to go to lunch when I wasn't there, so they didn't go to lunch with me. And they didn't teach me, and they didn't talk to me. And I knew I was dying. I went to the president, who I'd gone to work for, and I said, Win, I'm dying here, what's wrong? And he said, I wondered when you'd ask. You're conducting yourself like a snotty, arrogant 25-year-old MBA with a bunch of colleagues who are older, who've worked hard, and think that you have more opportunity than they have, and they don't like you for it. That's not good news to receive, by the way. What do I do about it? Shut up, get to work earlier, ask them questions, and pay attention when you go to lunch so you can sneak along even if they didn't invite you. And I did. And in about 4 or 5 weeks, things got better and we became good colleagues, but it was a good lesson. If you're a graduate of the Marshall School You're going to go places where people don't have your education, don't have your brains, or probably don't have your possibilities. The only way you can blow it is if you act on the surface like you think so. You're the last person who should act like you think so. In 10 years in the first division, I changed job every 2 years. I was always an operator or merchant. Became a VP of merchandising, VP of merchandising, advertising, vice president, general manager. Buell was bought in a hostile takeover. I was 29 years old, a vice president, thought I was set for life. Got called in one day and said, we've been bought. I was the youngest and the cheapest in the merger agreement. I had a 5-year contract. They couldn't be mean to me. They couldn't be not promote me, not pay me. But if I didn't like it, I could stay a year, but then leave and take a package with me, and I did, because I didn't like the people I went to work for. After I did that, I was looking for somebody who would make me president of something. The list was very, very short. Like after 5 months, I found one. That's pretty short. And I went to a small wholesale food company in Columbus, Ohio called Cardinal Foods. Now the successor organization is today's Cardinal Health, which it was, I don't know what the market of it was, a Fortune 25 a couple of years ago. This is a multi-billion-dollar gigantic business, but back then it was a small drug wholesaler, small food wholesaler. I was 3 years and said to the boss, who had been the reason I went there, Bob Walter, who I like and admire very much, I think you should sell me. He said, why? I said, well, if you get down to the drug business, which is higher margin and simplify it, Wall Street will like you better and the stock price will go up. And he said, well, I've been thinking about that, but I didn't know how to tell you. And I said, well, thanks for that. I'd like to be a part of the process. I'll tell the buyer I'll stay for a while if they want me to. That'll help you get more money, but I'd like to be a fly on the wall or a mouse in the corner while you do this. And he let me, and we did. And I stayed on. And at one point there, knew I didn't want to be a food wholesaler. I got a job offer from a very attractive company whose name you would recognize. Took the job, quit my job, and my then 18-year-old daughter, I had daughters at the time, 18 and 17, said, Dad, we have to talk. And it was, I think, a Wednesday or Thursday night. Said we have to talk, and we talked from about 10 till about 2:30. And their basic speech was, you got a pretty good family and you got pretty good kids. You move us as a junior and senior in high school, you're going to screw it all up. Are you sure you want to do that? And I quit the job and asked my old job back and got it back. I was a pretty good guy I was working for at the time. As soon as they graduated from high school, I was scheduled to move to the headquarters of the town where they had acquired the company. I knew I didn't want to be a wholesaler. I was asked to go to Shaw's Supermarket in New England as CEO. I did. I worked for the English, it's part of Sainsbury. I love New England. I love the job. We were number 2 in a pretty big, pretty growing company. We left for 3 reasons. I got tired of working for the English, and I got some Irish and some Scotch in me. I'd distinguish the British from the English. I mean, my basic problem, at least with those particular English, for those of you who are English, is that it's as if there's a conspiracy. Britannia still rules the seas. It's 1940, and if you act like you don't know, I'll act like I don't know, and maybe it's still true. The worse we did, the better we did, and the worse they did, the more they wanted to help, and I got a little tired of it. My wife was running, my wife Nita was running women's health programs at South Shore Hospital. She had a lousy boss who was a woman, by the way, but the real kicker was our youngest child, Katie, was 7 or 8, and in response to a question, I said, Katie, what are you doing? She said, I'm looking in the mirror. And I said, Katie, that would be a mirror. We have R's in our alphabet, and told Nita that our child was developing a speech impediment and we had to get out of town. So PetSmart asked again, and I came to PetSmart. I'd been on the board since 1889. When I got there in 1998, it was a turnaround. I didn't know it was a turnaround until a few months after I got there, proving that even outside board members who are involved know less than management does. That's a good lesson for you to remember. Back then, we were going to be the dominant supplier of pet food and supplies. We've done a business model. That sounds kind of transactional and basic. It's a PetSmart. We now do total lifetime care for every pet, every parent, every time, and that's more like PetSmart. We've done a lot of retooling in 2007, and I think we're probably ready to go again. Next, I got a short list of things. I've got several things that took me 61 years to learn. Crisis management, and that's bad news doesn't get better with time. I'll mention 3 quickly. I was at Jewel Food Stores in charge of the health and beauty aid desk when salmonella hit. Remember when people died in Chicago over Tylenol? Excuse me, not salmonella, Tylenol. Well, the way that story ends, I don't know names, but almost certainly, police say we can't prove it, we know who did it. One of the people who died was a family member of the perpetrator who murdered a family member and covered it up by putting bad Tylenol pills elsewhere around Chicago. And so far they've gotten away with it, probably. The people who died said they bought this stuff at Jewel Food Stores. That was an immediate, pull the product, take responsibility. Johnson & Johnson did a very good job as well. But to tell you about cleanup of a project, I mean, to get a Tylenol pill in Chicago at that time was a litigator's dream. It was a class action lawsuit. Every Johnson & Johnson salesman in the world went to every store 6 times, combed the back rooms, bulletins, send in your Tylenol to the reclamation center, cleaned this out, and it's stripped. On a whim, 4 weeks later, I put a little note in that said, please send your remaining Tylenol inventory into the warehouse. For those of you who don't know what a watermelon bin is, it's a 40 by 48 square pallet with a wooden thing about this high that you ship bulk watermelons in. So, and after all that, I just said, send in, we got 2 watermelon bins full of Tylenol back after everybody had done that. Salmonella. There was, people died of salmonella poisoning. Truth is, probably you and I are exposed to salmonella weekly, if not daily. The people who get hurt are the ones with a compromised immune system. You're on anti-rejection drugs from a liver transplant. You just finished a 12-day regimen of penicillin that killed the rest of the flora and fauna in your body. That's compromised immune systems are very vulnerable to salmonella. There was a plant owned by Jewel that had a process in which out-of-code milk was recycled and repasteurized and processed again, and it was goof-proof, and it was foolproof. And some people got salmonella poisoning and died. And the lesson I learned there is there was probably 15 people in the room. I was surely the youngest and the junior most there, and I regret to this day that I didn't speak up. And the lesson here is you only get a few chances to speak up, and if you're pretty sure you should speak up, you don't get do-overs. The process then was a bad one because the PR department and the lawyers were in charge. And what I'd say is I have great respect for lawyers and PR departments. If there's a crisis, I'd make them subservient. I wouldn't let either one of them run the process. The president of the company at that time let them run the process, shouldn't. And I was young and junior, but I regret to this day that I didn't speak up. Jewel denied it was their problem. Ran the plant another week. Another week later, 3 more people died from stuff that was produced after the first warning. Well, that did it. I mean, today that brand name has disappeared, and where that plant was, there is asphalt, because it was shut down, bulldozed, and asphalted over. Final one is the pet food recall. This happened to us last year. We were hurt by mostly canned dog food having tainted melamine in it. And by the way, it was never melamine. That's why you didn't hear people being definitive. But while everybody's saying it's melamine, Mars and Purina were feeding 30 times the concentration found of melamine to healthy dogs, and their kidneys were blowing it through just fine. It was tainted melamine, and if you wanted any biochemistry majors here, when they would biopsy a tissue sample from a deceased dog or cat, they would put in formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is one of the few things that was a solvent for the taint that was in the melamine. The way they found it by accident is from a frozen tissue sample that hadn't been put in formaldehyde, and the first time they looked at the tissue and it looked like it had glass shards in it. In that case, we knew what to do. We stopped selling the stuff. We took back everything. We took back stuff we didn't sell. We paid vet bills. We took our database, and anybody who'd bought the stuff in the last 6 months, we sent them an email. And we got credited for doing the right thing, and we gained share. I remember at one point, I couldn't figure what the problem was. I said, do the right thing is one of our mantras. And people said, well, how much is this going to cost? I said, what do you think it could cost? He said, this could be $800,000. I said, well, when you get to 3 million, check with me, but we'll probably keep going. Are we clear here? And from that day, why we did the right thing pretty fast. But you'll get it, there'll be a crisis that comes. And you don't get do-overs on how you react quickly. And I would say, be honest, step up and take responsibility, and you got better days coming. Until you do, you've only got worse days coming. Do the right thing, and I tell you my test for do the right thing. If you're a leader in business these days, you're always on camera or on some version of camera. There's very little privacy left. I have a red tartan tucked jacket that I wear about twice a year, once when I serve lunch at the Christmas luncheon on the top floor of the parking lot at PetSmart. So 2 hours after I served green beans almondine in the serving line, my photo with my red jacket was on the internet. So these days, you never know when you're on. And my other test is, presume when you're making a decision, your mother's going to read about it in the morning. Because she probably will. And is she going to smile or frown? And if you think your mother's going to frown, you probably shouldn't do it. The end. Listen to those who thoughtfully disagree, not the suck-ups. I understand you take Myers-Briggs. Here, I'm an ISTJ. Maybe, I don't know if that would surprise you or not. Myers-Briggs isn't taught this way yet at USC. Tell you how it was used on us is pretty good. 70 of us took it. And the test, okay, here's your score here, and there were 16 stations. There could be 16. When I say go, everybody go. That's a go, and everybody went. 7 stations don't have anybody at it, and 3 stations out of 70 would have 64 of them. I remember Fred Hartz was by himself, and Fred was squirming. He's checking his scores, make sure it's right, asking for a do-over. Everybody's kind of going, like Fred, everybody knows Fred's weird. And then the guy who's supposed to say, let me tell all you ISTJs something. That was my group. You're cheap. You're common. You're ordinary. And all of you would happily go off a cliff at 60 miles an hour into a pit of poison and kill yourselves in the company. Fred is the one who'll have the point of view, and before you get to the cliff, and say stop. And so now all of a sudden everybody wants to be Fred, or wants to be Fred's friends. And there's a perspective on who you need in a business. Things change pretty fast, and there's lots of points of view. And the common ordinary people like me are the ones least likely, perhaps, to keep people out of trouble. And when you've got a Fred who thinks a little bit differently and doesn't quite get the jokes quite as quickly as everybody else does, be very careful before you don't treat Fred well, or be very careful before you don't take Fred as a pretty early draft choice, because Fred is the one that will keep us ISTJs from making a fatal mistake. Career progressions rarely go straight up. They're often horizontal, diagonal, and sometimes they take a back step. You got to watch my hands here. Everybody likes their career to go like this. I got bad news, most of them don't. I got good news. Most of the ones that go like this, you get to vice president first, and you're done. We got a guy in the company, Amy would know, named Dave Lenhart. He's a New Trier High School. He's a Trevi, and that's the public high school in Chicago that makes the top 25 in America list. And then Cornell, and then Dartmouth, and then Merrill Lynch investment banker in South America for 6 years, and then Bain Consulting for 6 or 8 years. Did the PetSmart work. We invited him to join the company. He did. And he came in as Senior Vice President of Strategy and Services. Pretty good. 2 years ago, Bob and I, our president, said, well, Lenhart needs finishing school if he's ever going to be a general manager in this business. And so for 15 months, Lenhart's first week was as a dog bather. And then he unloaded and stocked trucks, and then he cleaned fish tanks, and then he was a fish department manager. Then he was a store manager, and he was a district manager. And he was a district manager with full P&L responsibility for the Christmas season of 2006. He was a pretty good district manager. He won the best one we had. People I mean, 10 or 12 of 60 would have blown him away on the best day he ever had, but he was a pretty good district manager. His schedule is that of that job. The best meeting in PetSmart's run by our presidents every Tuesday morning, 8 to 11, and Lenhart got to go to the meeting every other week as the only change to his schedule. And the transformation was amazing. By about the 5th week, some other senior vice president would say, he said, no, wait a minute, you don't get it. That's not how it works. And he'd be right. And the point here is, got to watch my hands again, careers, if you don't want to cap out at vice president, go like this. And so along the way, I would try when I was young to get a broad set of experiences. I'd have my eye on the end prize, not next week. I'd try to do a balance of the two. I think you are mostly responsible for your own career progression, but don't be afraid to reach out or go sideways or go diagonally. You may not get vice president as quickly, but you won't be done then either. At higher levels, who you are is much more important than what you know. I know this one sounds kind of squishy and fuzzy, but people don't follow you for what you know. I never followed anybody because I liked their resume that I read or the title they had after the name. I usually chose to follow people because I thought they were generous rather than selfish. They were honest rather than dishonest interpersonally. They were communicative rather than closed-mouthed, and they were smart enough. People talk about the millennials, and I guess that's you in some cases. Bad news I guess I have is ticking the boxes, each and every box. Is good but not sufficient. There's some other things other than ticking the boxes that are required along the way, like proving you have listening skills, proving you can collaborate and work with other people, problem solving in a dynamic, changing rather than a static world. And I see a few people, not all, who got the misimpression that if I ticked every box, I'm good to go. And I think ticking every box is a good start, but in most cases it's probably insufficient. Experience and judgment are both critical. If you only get to choose one, choose judgment. I know people with lots of experience who I wouldn't trust with a nickel. And I know some people without much experience who I'd give thousands of dollars. So this is good news for younger people. There are experienced people who will be ahead of you who don't have good judgment, and they'll work for you someday. But as you get the chance to exercise and think about judgment, I would think that's pretty important. Pay back. You have a responsibility. That is to your family, that is to your school, that is to your society. You are privileged to be a student at USC. Somebody's paying a lot of money for you to be here. You get to have a great life for 4 years and get access to possibilities and opportunities and skills that most of the world literally would kill for, but they don't have the chance. And when you're done with that, it isn't about what you can harvest from it. You'll harvest plenty. You should give back to your school and tell your family thank you, and you should lead an ethical life, and you should lead a green life, and you should do volunteer work, and you should find a company to work for where those things are allowed and valued. And finally, the final thing I'd say is, and I have done this, but I don't know you well enough to tell you what mine is. About 3 years ago, and I wish I'd done it sooner, I wrote the 10-word description I'd like to have on my tombstone. And I make a lot of my decisions against what I wish to have on my tombstone, which I'll never see. It will make not much difference to anybody. But I think it's a reasonable exercise sometime when you got 5 minutes to write down what you'd like to have it say in your tombstone. And if you do it when you're young, it might be interesting to see if you wrote it now and you wrote it when you're 50 and see if you changed your mind. I suspect you might.